Welcome to the PT Marketing Power Hour, highlighting successful marketing strategies from North America's fastest growing clinics so you can learn from their wins and power your practice growth. We have another great episode today, so don't forget to hit subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Now, here's your host, physical therapist, marketing expert, and CEO of Practice Promotions, Neil Trickett.
Hi, and welcome to the PT Marketing Power Hour, highlighting successful marketing strategies from North America's fastest growing clinics so you can learn from their wins and power your practice growth. I'm your host, Neil Trickett, CEO of Practice Promotions, and today's focus is talking about adding additional streams of revenue to your practice with retail sales. And so we've got Ryan Tabaka here from Squid Compression. Great to have you on here, Ryan.
Neil, I certainly appreciate you having me on. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Awesome. So, let's talk a little bit about yourself, about Squid Compression. I mean, you've definitely had a lot of interactions with practice owners over the years. So looking forward to seeing your insights here. So if you tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, certainly will. This is a conversation that's near and dear to me. I am currently the National Sales Director for Squid Compression. So simply Squid is cold and sequential compression that physical therapy clinics, athletic trainers, orthopedic surgeons, the list goes on and on, use for controlling pain and swelling. So it's a product that's easy to use. This kind of thing has been used forever. We have just figured out how to make it a little more accessible, portable, more affordable. We have a consumer line we call Squid Go that we sell directly to individuals for personal use. So that kind of goes into this conversation that I think we're going to start having here in a minute. But a little of my background. So I've been doing this now with Squid for about 7 years. I've spent the last 18 plus years in this market, working with physical therapy clinics and just trying to figure out how to help them and provide products to them that help better their patient care. So it's a market I've been a part of for a while, love, and hopefully we can continue to help them be as successful as they have been to this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, you've talked to many practice owners here. And so what are some of the biggest challenges that you're seeing today for physical therapists and their businesses?
Yeah, I jokingly say keeping the lights on. Just running a profitable business isn't easy ever, right? But for physical therapy clinics, it becomes harder and harder as the days go by, right? And right now we're in an environment, several things going against you. You've got ever-changing insurance reimbursements, right? I mean, we could talk about that for hours because some of those rules have probably changed literally in the 30 seconds that we've been chatting now. But you've got changing reimbursements. You've got the cost of providing those services continues to increase, whether it's rents for your building, your mortgages, salaries for staff, the products that you're using. And then you add on top of all of that, the way we interact with your patients is continuing to change. Maybe you're in that situation where you're not seeing patients quite as often as you were at one point, at least in person. We're starting to see some more remote therapy options and things of that nature. So I think now more than ever, physical therapy clinics have to figure out, how do we think outside the box rather than just relying on the typical insurance reimbursement like we have for so many years.
Yeah, what a great point there. It's really thinking outside the box. And for a lot of our practice owners, it comes back to also thinking about your business, right? So your practice it's a business, right? How are you running as a business? You're in the business of helping people get better, right? But it's a business at the end of the day. And so in any business, you're looking to make sure that there's more revenue coming in than expenses going out. And in today's world, there's more challenges with expenses than ever before. And if we just rely on that insurance-based model, then you are kind of capped, right? You're capped with that middleman, which is the insurance company between you and the consumer, which is the patient, right? So how can we actually go more direct to the consumer, because our consumers, our patients, do want more things, right? They're going to go search online for stuff. I mean, they're browsing on Amazon, right? They're browsing all these different
Yep.
places for items and solutions and things like that. And so if we can help provide some of those additional things that they could use on their own, in addition to coming to us for care, that makes them successful. It makes our businesses more successful. So how,
Absolutely.
as you've been
Absolutely.
implementing, squid compression in different clinics, how are you seeing PTs overcome some of those challenges using these different revenue streams?
Yeah, and frankly, you talk about searching for things online. I'm doing some shopping right now online as we're talking. It's that simple to do, right? You don't even know I'm doing it, and I'm doing it. So the big question, the big conversation we've had for all these years, when talking to physical therapists, is I'm not a salesperson. I don't want to be a salesperson. Sale is an ugly 4-letter word that I don't want in my vocabulary. And at the end of the day, I hate to break it to everyone out there, you are salespeople. You are selling things right now, sometimes without even knowing it. And to be honest, most of you are really good at it, right? And what I mean by that, you're selling yourself every single day, right? You're selling your practice to potential patients. You're selling your plan of care to your current patients. You're selling your practice to referring physicians, right? So you are salespeople. So let's first and foremost, let's just get past that. Like it or not, you are. Now, it doesn't feel like you are because you're selling something that you're passionate about and something that you just do every day. Well, at the end of the day, retail sales within the clinic is exactly that. It's an extension of your practice, right? And I tell you all the time, do you think your patients would benefit from cold therapy at home, from resistance bands and pulleys at home, from topical analgesics at home? And 99% of the time, the answer is, well, yes, of course they would. So, okay, well, how are they getting those things now? And more often than not, the answer is, well, I tell them to go online, or I tell them to go to the drugstore down the street. And what I try then to get across is you're doing a disservice, not only to your practice, right, financially, but you're doing a disservice to the patient at the end of the day, because they would rather buy from you first and foremost, right? You are their trusted partner in this process, and they want to work with you as much as they possibly can. But even beyond that, when you have them buy it from somewhere else, you don't know if they're buying the right thing. You don't know how much they're paying for it. So I think you're doing a disservice ultimately to the patient. And because we need to think about retail sales in the clinic, not as sales, but again, as an extension of your plan of care, right? If it's a product that you think a patient will benefit from, then it's part of that POC, and it should be treated accordingly.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And I can just remember when I was running our practice that, we just had simple things on hand like TheraBand or a foam roller.
Mm-hmm.
And our therapists were using those items every single day with their patients. And they're like, hey, I want you to do this at home, right? Continue doing this at home.
Right. Absolutely.
And if it's easy, if it's in there in the clinic, boom, the patient's just going to take it with them and go, right? They're going to pay for it right there and go,
right.
Versus like, hey, go find this online, wait for shipping, wait for it to come in, and then start using it.
Right.
People want the convenience, right? And so if you have it on hand in the clinic, that's a really important, plan of care tool that you said there. So, you've helped clinics add, compression therapy into their, retail part of it. So, like, how does that work? Like, how have clinics implemented that type of program and recommending that to the patients?
Yeah, and that's a really important part of it. I think, again, to not only to make it a simple process within the clinic, but to also make the staff feel like they're not salespeople, right? So number one, I say, is pick the correct products, right? Pick the products that you actually, ideally, that you're using in clinic, or at least products that you know and that you trust and you really think the patient should benefit from, right? As long as you're doing that with those products, then the process is pretty simple. Beyond that, it's making sure the entire staff is engaged in this process, because the other conversation I'll have with a lot of private practice owners is, hey, Ryan, I get it. I'm down with this. I think it's a good idea. My staff, though, man, they're not interested in it. Well, you have to make them part of the process, right? Have that conversation with them. What products do you think that we should be selling? And treat them throughout all of this as a partner in that decision making. And so the way that it's worked well for us with Squid products is the product by and large is already being used in the clinic, right? It is part of that plan of care in the clinic, more often than not. And so then so that's how you're introducing it to the patient, right? So it doesn't feel salesy at all, right? It's just, this is part of the treatment. I'm acting as a clinician right now. And then for any of those patients that you think that would benefit from using this more than when they're just in the clinic, it's, hey, by the way, they have a model that you can actually purchase, and believe it or not, you can get it right here from me. So having the conversation that way, as far as the way the treatment plan works, and using those products that and respect, is really, really important. And then as far as, and this is the other thing I think that we get caught up in sometimes, is, well, I don't know how to set this up, right? I don't know how to do sales. I don't know how to, whether it's online sales or however it is. And back in the day, that was a valid point. It could be pretty difficult, right? And you have to know your rules and regulations wherever you are, because every state's a little different. So I'm certainly not going to sit here and tell you that this is what you should do across the board. You do need to do a little research on your own. However, what I can tell you is, no matter your situation, companies like mine have figured out how to make it as easy as we can for you, right? Because it benefits us too. And so whether it is setting up an actual online store yourself through your website, whether it's doing an online store through a distributor partner, right? Those exist out there. Whether it's having products in the clinic that you're going to sell right there, point of sale, right, as the patient is checking out. Or now we even have affiliate programs, right? So, and that's something that we do at Squid a lot, is you don't want to be involved in that actual sales process. Well, we even can fix that for you, right? And there's QR codes, and then they buy it from us, and we ship it to the patient. So first and foremost, that is a hurdle that we as manufacturers and distributors have figured out for you, right? Because it behooves us to make it simple for you. So have that conversation with us, and we can help you determine which of those scenarios works best for you. That's what we're here for. So lean on us as that expert, right? And then we'll let you focus more on your day-to-day stuff. But ultimately, no matter which selling strategy you use, the important thing is involving the staff, choosing products that make sense for you, and have fun with it, right? I mean, we have a program where we give you marketing material for the clinic, right? So banners and things you can put up if you want. Have specials based on the holiday that's happening, right? I mean, there's all kinds of different ways you can do it, but as the clinic owner, you have to be the one first and foremost to drive that atmosphere and what you want your clinicians to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love all those good points you had there, and I think it makes so much sense just taking it as an extension of what's already happening in the clinic, so they can continue on at home, right? It just makes it very easy for anybody to sell.
Yep, absolutely.
And when you have to sell it half the time, because the patient say, "Hey, do you have this for me to take home?" Right?
Mm-hmm.
Or they might see some mark, something on a poster, right, or even some information, a brochure on it that might be in your waiting room about it.
Mm-hmm.
And heck, we in therapy we use compression therapy a lot, right? And
Mm-hmm.
patients are on that in the clinic, so it makes sense so that they could have something that they could easily take home. And the devices today are so portable, so easy to use for the patients. That's what I really love about when I've seen Squid being used before. It's super easy for the patient to do at home. And I mean, you can just think about all those patients that you have with swelling and all kinds of after injury or chronic, edema and things like that. I mean, we see the results from that in the clinic, right? And just it's nice for them to do it. But I do think also, like, if you haven't been doing much in terms of additional retail sales in your clinic, right? Start simple, right? Start with one or two main things that you can get everybody comfortable with. Where I see sometimes people go a little wrong is that they might, well, like, we actually could do it for them, but like put a total Amazon store on their website, right? And you don't need to be selling 100 different products on your practice's website, right? Because most of the time, people are only going to buy one or two things that you commonly recommend to them on there. So I think it is
absolutely. And sorry, and that's a good point. Is a couple things with that is, people often ask me, and maybe I'm jumping ahead now, so pardon me if I am, but well, how much money can I make doing this? Well, the question is, it depends, right? I mean, I see practices make a few $100 a month. I see some that make $3,000 a month. At the end of the day, it varies on how you want to set it up. But what shouldn't be lost in that whole conversation is, although we're talking about doing this for additional revenue, that isn't necessarily even the primary focus, right? This will never be the primary revenue source for your clinic. And if it is, you're in the wrong business, right? This is ancillary revenue, and let's treat it as such. And so starting small is a great idea, because if you start too big, well, then nothing sells, right? Pick a couple of those products that you truly believe in, that your patients are interested in, and then push those and really spend some time on crafting that message to your patients. Because another thing that I hear a lot, and if I never hear it again, it'll be too soon, is my patient can't afford that, right? And that it's like fingernails on a chalkboard to me when I hear it, because that may be the case, right? Maybe some of your patients can't afford whatever product it is we're talking about. But the problem we get into, and this isn't just physical therapists, this is all of us in daily lives. We decide to be the one that determines how people value spending their money. And that's just not a place that we should be in, right? Is we need to allow them to choose what they can afford and what they can't, because we have no idea, frankly. It's hard to judge someone on what they can spend, just interacting with them a little bit. So what I tell people kind of along that is, and if you're not offering it to them because you're already making that assumption beforehand they can't afford it, well, shame on you, because that's not your job. Your job as their healthcare partner is to lay out the best plan of care that you can devise for them. Right? You don't do it based on, well, I think you can afford this and think you can't afford that. It's, I'm going to put together the plan of care that's going to get you back as quickly as possible to that activity that you're missing. Right? And that's another way we need to change our conversations too, is I'm not necessarily trying to treat your shoulder pain. I'm trying to get you back to that activity that the shoulder pain is preventing you from doing. Right? Then all of a sudden I'm willing to spend a little more money when I'm thinking about less about the pain and more about the activity I'm missing. So this is the plan that I recommend. These are the products and services that will help you get there. And then you choose if you trust me and want to do that or not. And maybe plenty of times the answer will be no, I get it. I just can't do that right now. But we have to leave that up to them. And I tell people, if I were going for any sort of industry, but in physical therapy in this case, if I'm going to a therapy session and the therapist gives out their plan of care, and I know that they're not providing me all of the options that they could give me, you know what? I'm going to go find someone else, right? I go there to you as a trusted partner to do everything you can to help get me back to my activity of daily living. And we need to think about it as such.
Awesome. Yeah. I think people really appreciate that kind of certainty when you're like, hey, I know you need this, right? And we could figure out a way that you can have it, right? And I think those points, what you were just saying, they're valid even for just our treatment plan, like how we're actually providing care, right? And we wonder why, patients drop off the schedule, right? And they don't complete their plan of care. It's because have we done a good enough job, and our team has done a good enough job of selling that service and the necessity to that patient, getting them to see how it's going to impact their life, get them back to work, get them back to, activities that they enjoy. And then of course, how our service is going to help them get better, but then also some of the things that they may need to continue on at home, that we have options for them with that too.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Absolutely.
And so, you might have the question too, like, a practice owner might think, hey, that's nice, and if I want to, sell compression, or I want to, sell some other types of services to take home, when it costs me a lot to get like inventory in the door, right? Like how does the setup kind of these things work, and is it costly, and like all these kind of things that go through practice owners' minds?
Yeah, and that's what I was mentioning before, that you need to have that conversation with us, because the answer is it depends, right? It really, most of us now can set up a program that fits your individual circumstance, right? And there's value to having product there in person that that you purchase up front and you can sell to them. But there's some, there's cost that goes with that, right? Buying the stuff and then sitting on it. There's reasons you would do that, but you don't have to do that. You can have it where, so a lot of companies now are willing to drop ship on your behalf. You set it up as an online store. You don't have any inventory. So there are programs out there that can make it as, literally designed based on what you need. You don't want to spend a lot of upfront money. Great. You don't have to do that. You're willing and capable of spending a little upfront because you know that you can make a little more, right? There are advantages of having stuff there. Great. We can do that. So again, you need to sit down and think about, well, what makes sense for me and my circumstance. Find those, and again, I agree with you 100%. Pick a 2 or 3, however many products to start, and talk to those distributors or manufacturers and say, okay, this is what I want to do. Help me figure this out, because that's what we're here for. That is what we are experts in. We're trying to make it so you can continue to do what you do well every day, and that's treat patients. Let us be your partner in this process.
And so, Ryan, if I was say like a three therapist practice, like how would it work for me, like in setting up something like Squid?
So again, yeah, so we would sit down and we'd have this same conversation, because I've got several different programs that I have in place now. The standard back in the day was, you would buy it from me, you would have it on your shelves, and then again, you introduce the product to the patient because you're using it as part of the typical plan of care. Anytime that there's a patient that says, hey, I think you could benefit from this more than just here in the clinic, we have this great option. Here's some information on it. Here's the price. We actually have one here you can buy even before you leave. That is certainly a good way of doing it. Now, again, there's takes a little more time and effort to get a program like that up and running. You need to know, what your regulations and rules are in your given state as far as reselling products, right, and charging tax and those things. That varies. So that's a conversation we would have to have together and figure out. Or we've even now come up with what we call a retail affiliate program. Again, a clinic that wants to have access and be able to sell products without actually taking part in the sales process, which is a lot of them out there. We simply set them up as an affiliate. We even provide what we call a marketing kit for the clinic that includes take-home cards with their individual QR code on it. We've got a tabletop display. We've got retractable banners and posters. Just some stuff that you can put around the clinic to let people know it's there. And then when a patient is interested, now it's as simple as, hey, take this card, scan that code. They'll ultimately buy it directly from our website. We ship it to the patient. And so we take care of all of that aspect for you. And so again, it really just depends on how involved you want to be in that process. And then we worked with you to come up with a plan best suits you, because what works for you may not work for, the next clinic I talk to. And most of us now have figured and know that, and have figured out plans, to make it easy for you as the clinic owner.
That's awesome. And yeah, there's different ways to go about it, right? And
Absolutely.
Obviously you've worked with hundreds of different clinics. I'm kind of curious in terms of, like some of your best performing clinics, like what kind of numbers of units do they put out? What kind of like revenue do they generate from that?
Yeah, and that's the thing. If you're talking about just, single products, so like so with me just selling my product, I've got clinics that are kind of passive with it, that maybe sell one a month. We've got other groups that are selling 10 a month. So it really kind of depends on what your patient population looks like, how big of a clinic, how many locations you have, but ultimately how aggressive is not the right word, but how much you want to put into this process. The other thing we have found, and I don't care if this is an affiliate program, if you're selling stuff out of the clinic, if you have an online store, interacting with your patients outside of just mentioning it to the clinic. So I mean by that, most clinics out there are communicating in some form or fashion with their patients when they're not in the clinic, right? Whether that's newsletters, whether that's sending emails, whether social media posts are really popular now. And so, include in some of your social media posts, like, hey, this month we're talking about ACL reconstruction. And we've got, this is kind of our plan of care that we use for that. And we've got a product, that fits into that. Here's some information, here's the code. Or do that in your emails to your either current and even past patients. And what I can tell you is I can see real time when you send out communication like that, the number of clicks that happen on my end, it's mind-boggling. And so now, do those all turn into sales immediately? Not necessarily, but anytime you can interact with your patients, not only about products, but about the types of care that you're providing and suggestions on different topics. It's just a really easy, quick, cost-effective way to get information out in front of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great point there. Is like you don't have to limit it to just patients who are in the clinic at the time, right?
Right.
Most people have been in business for a while. They have a pretty big list of patients that they've seen over time. They should be actively marketing to them, just to keep good relationships with them, provide them value, provide them ideas on a consistent basis, at least on a monthly basis, if not more. And that's what we help clinics do, right? Email, direct mail.
I was going to say you could even help with
we do all that.
right?
But the clinics that we see that are super successful, the ones that are doing quite a bit of marketing to their past patients, and they are putting in, different things that they do, whether it's been squid, whether it's been laser therapy that they've done in the clinic that's a cash offer. So there's lots of different things that you could be putting in those marketing materials that provide value, like tips and exercise tips and recipes, all kinds of little things there. But then you could also be saying, hey, if you want to, we do sell these kind of things. They've never seen things like that in their normal searches, right? But you're bringing that to them, and they realize like, oh, I've got a friend that has that kind of problem. Maybe this might be helpful to them. They could share that information with them.
Yeah. And it doesn't even have to come across as salesy, right? It's, hey, this conversation right now is about, here are tips and exercises for XYZ. And by the way, this is a great product that is used within that. And so it's not just, hey, this month we're having a flash sale, selling stuff out of the clinic. This is another way we're extending our plan of care, and another way that we're communicating with you what that plan of care is. And because at the end of the day, we have to think about products in that way, is not just selling products, but products that are part of my plan of care. That makes it easier for therapists to get behind.
Yeah, absolutely makes sense. And if you look at it from the business sense side of things, so, let's say if you're an average clinic out there, and if you look across the nation, and let's say like You get on average $80, $85 a visit, right? And patients come in for an average of 12 visits, some less, some more. But if that's under your average, then the average value of a new patient coming for care is about $1,000. Now, let's just say if that patient came in and they, you, as part of your normal, process, maybe they buy some extra things in the clinic. Maybe they buy Therabin, maybe they buy a foam roller, maybe they buy a squid compression, right? If that value went up, let's say, $50 per person, or even $100 per person, that's a 5 to 10% increase in revenue just from those additional sales, right? So you can see the difference that can make. And often we're scrambling and having to deal with a 2% cut from Medicare, for example, right? Well, we got to be able to offset that 2% cut, right? We got to be able to make more than that to account for inflation and things like that. And so in today's world, we see more and more of this in all kinds of healthcare offices, is that there are ancillary products and services being sold to the patients, because there's people are more expectant of that these days, and they're looking for additional solutions they can take home.
Yep, without a doubt.
Yeah. And so, Ryan, you were talking a little bit about, like the QR code and things like that. Have you seen therapists set up different online stores, and like, what are some of the things that you've seen with that?
Yeah, so certainly, there are clinics out there that, right on their own personal website will have, a list of the products that they sell, and, and they can, you can click on it right then and there. And again, on the back end of that, and the patient doesn't care, right, what the back end is. They just know that, hey, I'm ordering it off of this. Now, and again, that's back to, I'm going to keep saying this, is so many different ways of setting it up, right? So when even on your own online, on your own website, the patient clicks and orders it, well, maybe that's then coming, it's arriving to them from you. Maybe then you have it set up where it is tagged with that manufacturer or that distributor. So there's some of that. There are groups out there now that will actually help set up. So a lot of the distributors, right? So most of the clinics out there, you'll buy some of your products directly from the manufacturer. I certainly have plenty of clinics who buy directly from us, but I also have a larger percentage that buy my product through one of their trusted distributors, right? There's a bunch of distributors out there that sell a lot of different products, and that makes it nice for the clinic, right? Because you don't have to go from manufacturer to manufacturer. You go to that one person that you know. A lot of those groups now are even able to help you set up an online store through them. Right. So they've got some of your home health products. And so now when I'm clicking on that site or clicking on that product and paying for something, it's actually being purchased through that distributor. So you've got, again, there's a myriad of ways of doing it. The old school way is still to have some stuff right there behind the counter. And that's still a really good way of doing it. I recommend that to everyone. It's good for me as the person selling it. But there's some real advantages to the clinic also, right? I mean, it's, hey, I've got it right here. I can sell it to you now. The profit's usually a little better for you when you do it that way. But frankly, not everyone can do that. Not everyone's interested in doing that. So again, find those couple of products, talk to your distributor, talk to the manufacturer, and you'd be shocked at just how simple some of this can really be to set up.
Absolutely. And I do think that what your point was there, having the clinic, having it being able to just take away that day, that's a great experience for the patient, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think if you do it right, like if you're smart about how maybe you set up your waiting room or certain parts of the clinic where you might have just a simple display, like Squid provides a lot of, market materials there. Often, you don't even have to initiate the conversation. The patient might initiate the conversation. Oh, what's that? Right. Or that's interesting. Can you tell me more about it? Right. So a lot of times just having it set up properly in the clinic is a marketing thing. And I've known, some of the distributors that you're talking about there, they might even have some displays that they would put in the office for you with samples of products in there. And again, the patients on their time and waiting in the waiting room, they'll browse for that kind of stuff, right? And then they're oh, I didn't realize that you have that kind of stuff here, and then they go ahead and start that purchase. Your comment, one thing I would say on the online store that I've seen, and I think simplicity is always the key here. So if you are going to set up, an online store on your website to make it easy for patients to get things from you, I think it is good to go through another party, because it just makes it so much easier to do the shipping process and the taxation and all those kind of things. The other part of it too is the compliance on your website is something, especially with accepting credit cards online through websites, there's more what's called PCI compliance. So that can get a bit more technical. If you're working with some bigger, distributors or, like in Squid and things like that, then they have that already set up and all the securities and stuff through those portals that they go through. So, it makes it less risky to you as a practice owner, makes it much simpler a process and easier for people to go through. And it's very simple to create those kind of links within your website. So it looks often very much like it's part of your website that people go through for that. So just some caveats there to think about as you're looking at possibly an online store. But also the main thing here is just thinking about what can you do to bring retail sales into your clinic to benefit your patients and also benefit your practice.
Yep.
So Ryan, great insight today. I really appreciate you being on here and giving us that download, helping open our eyes to this different world that's there's capabilities there. Do you have any final advice to therapists out here in regards to putting retail sales in their clinic?
Yeah, it's again, get past this notion that sell is a 4-letter word because you're already doing it, right? So let's just move that to the side. And when thinking about all of these things, think about it as an extension of your plan of care, and keep the entire staff part of the process, right? Whether that's your physical therapist, your PTAs, your techs, your front staff. They're all very important to the process. And so make them a part of that process. And don't think that it's so daunting you can't get started, because you can get started very, very simply on a small scale and expand as you need to. But reach out to those of us in the market that are already your trusted partners, and let us help you continue down that path, so then you can keep doing what you do, and that's keeping us all out there doing the things that we love doing.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Love it. And so, Ryan, what's a great way for people to learn more about Squid and about you?
Yeah, so mine, email, if you want to get a hold of me easily, email is a great way to do it. It's just ryan@squidcompression.com. You can find us on our website at squidcompression.com. Like I said, most of the distributors you're working with, there's a decent chance that you can get access to the products through them as well. And that's, again, for a lot of our products, not just Squid, but a lot of these other things we're talking about. But I'll talk about my product because I can do that. Our whole goal with this process is to help you across the board, right? So we've got professional products that you would buy and use in the clinic, right, as part of the plan of care when the patient is actually in the building. And a lot of those are, can be billed through insurance if you want them to be. But then we also then went that next step and said, all right, well, how can we help you create some revenue from those patients and better that care when they're not in the clinic? And that's where the this cash revenue side with our Squid Go consumer model goes. So our whole thing is I can go in and talk to a clinic and say, I can literally help you from point A to point B, no matter where the patient is in the process. We have products and services that can help you with that. So I encourage you to reach out and chat with us. Even if you just want to talk about this conversation in general, it's, as I said, I think it's a valuable conversation to have, and we could talk about it all day if we wanted to.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, thanks, Ryan, for being on the call here today. Really appreciate you sharing your insights. And thanks to all our listeners out there and viewers. Again, keep looking out for new podcasts coming here this year, and wishing you much success in your practice for 2023. right. Thanks, everybody.
Absolutely.
Have a great day.
Thanks again for joining us today. Be sure to check out practicepromotions.net/power. There, listeners can download over 9 checklists and free resources made to coach you through simple, proven marketing actions to increase new patients. So check it out today. That's practicepromotions.net/power, and I'll see you next time.